Finding success as a freelancer takes time, and many are unable to weather the storm and end up throwing in the towel on their career due to financial instability, especially when one becomes riddled with debt. But that doesn't have to be you. In this video, I'm going to share how I've managed to stay debt-free for my entire adult life. If you're new to the channel, my name is Hassiem Muhammad. I'm an award-winning actor. I've been on TV, I've performed on stages around the country, and although I'm not rich and famous yet, I am a working actor who supports themselves as a freelancer. I was inspired to make this video because of a clip I saw on social media where Mark Ruffalo, actor, plays the Hulk, you know, big green guy. Y'all know who the Hulk is. He was giving advice to actors, and it was everything from like, don't do drugs to stay out of debt. And when he started speaking about debt, you could tell the look in his eyes that this was personal. And he said something that really stuck with me, which is we need time. To build a career, it takes time. They don't happen overnight. And especially when you're an artist like myself, it really takes time for your career to mature, for you to meet the right people. We say it's about who you know. Well, when you're fresh into the city that you end up working in or fresh into a new industry, you don't know anybody. So if it's about who you know, it's got to take time to get to know people. You've got to sharpen your tools, improve on your craft. All this stuff takes time, and it's really hard to stay in. It's really hard to weather that storm of time if you're broke, and especially if you're worse than broke, which is what I consider debt to be. Being in debt is like being worse than broke because it is negative income. Let's say you have a net worth of $20,000 and you have a loan for $40,000. Effectively, your net worth is negative $20,000. That's what debt does to one's net worth. It's widely accepted that it takes 3 to 5 years for a business to turn a profit. And in my industry, that number is more like 7 to 10. 10 years is a long time to wait for a big break, and it's especially hard if you have financial stress, especially debt. Debt is like a parasite. It just continues to take, and take because you are always owing something. And most forms of debt that people are involved with have interest rates that are attached to them. And interest rates cause that initial amount you borrowed to just increase over time. So let's say you're an actor like me and there's a really exciting project, but it doesn't really pay that much. You may have to turn that job down if it doesn't make you enough to cover this debt that's coming along with you. It doesn't matter if you cut out all of your other expenses. If you are in debt, you will always have a bill. You will always have a bill to pay, and you will always have to have some kind of work that can make up for it. It is super restrictive, and that's just one of the reasons why we've got to avoid it like the plague. The definition of entrepreneurship is the activity of setting up a business or businesses, taking on financial risks in the hopes of profit. We need to be able to take risks as entrepreneurs, as freelancers. We need to be able to kind of gamble or not really gamble, but bet on ourselves and invest in our careers. It's really hard to do that when you have negative income. I can't take a low-paying contract if I have this debt over here because that's a recurring bill that is just going to keep coming. It's going to keep growing, the interest rates, and eventually they may spiral out of control. I need the ability as an artist to say, you know what? I can take this lower paying gig because ultimately, as long as my bills are paid, I'm fine. But again, if I have this debt hanging over my head, then that makes me less likely to take that risk. And who knows, I may not meet that one director or that one producer that could really blow my career up. Okay, so how have I avoided getting into debt? Debt's so scary. How did I do it? How did I stay away from it? To be clear, I don't come from money. I don't have parents who've just been funneling my lifestyle. I'm not one of those Nepo babies or, trust fund kids who've avoided debt because they've just had their whole life paid for them. No, the last time my parents contributed to my bank account was like my freshman year of college, like before the school year started when they bought my school supplies and school clothes. After that, it's been all me. Every dollar that I currently have, I worked and earned myself. So how do I avoid going into debt? One, I went to school for free. This one may not apply to you, but it is a part of my reality that I'm going to be honest about. I got a full ride scholarship to go to college. I know some of you over there are groaning because you're like, student loan debt is the thing that's killing me, and I understand it, and I do have a strategy to offer you if that applies to you, so just stick around. But for me, that was one thing. I chose to go to a school that had offered me a full ride. Student loan debt is the #1 debt that Americans face. That's how I avoided it. Number 2 is credit card debt. So I got a credit card when I was a senior in college. And my finance professor had mentioned to us that getting a credit card is a great way to build a credit score. It shows credit history, it shows your ability to pay a bill. But you got to be really careful because, again, typically they have really high interest rates. And if you don't pay that bill, it can go downhill very fast. So what I did was I did a little research. I got a Discover student card. And basically what that meant was it was like no fees and a relatively low interest rate. But that kind of didn't matter because this was my strategy that to this day I have stood by, which is I only use a credit card to buy food. Why? I know I'm going to have to buy food, and it's something that I know I have the cash for. I know that I'm going to have to pay X amount of dollars per month on groceries, so I already have that money set aside. So I might as well put it on my credit card, and then at the end of the month when the bill comes, I pay the whole thing off. I did that my senior year, month after month, and graduated with a credit score over 700. By the time I moved to New York, my credit score had hit an 800. So by the time I graduated, I had an incredibly good credit score, and it was really easy. All I do is buy groceries. So what I would recommend is that if you do have a credit card, pay off your bill in its entirety every month. Don't spend money on your credit card for things that you don't already have the money to pay off. Do not treat your credit card as like some kind of endless bank account that just exists in woo-woo land. No, it has real repercussions. Make sure that you have the dollars to back it up before you swipe that card. The second way I've avoided debt is to buy everything in cash. Like everything. Jay-Z said something along the lines of, if you can't afford to buy something twice, you can't afford to buy it at all. I love that. I live by it. Look, I know that may sound a little extreme. You're like, oh, what if it's something that's really expensive? Sure, there's exceptions to every rule, but think about it this way. Let's say I needed a new computer, right? It's going to cost me $1,500. And let's say that's all I have in my bank account. If I spend all $1,500 on my computer and then I get a flat tire, or I need to get new headshots, or I have a medical bill, all of a sudden my bank account's in the negative. I may need a credit card to cover that purchase, and I don't have the cash to back it up. So now I'm in debt. The downward spiral has begun. If you can't afford it twice, you may not be able to afford it at all. Now, if it's something really expensive like a car, okay, you might not need to save for 2 cars, but I would recommend paying for it in cash. That's how I got my car. I saved up and I paid for it completely in cash. I avoided any debt whatsoever. I've never had a car payment in my life. And the final way I avoid being in debt is by aggressively paying it off anytime I do accrue some debt. I have a few credit cards. That's really the only debt that I allow myself to take on at this moment in my life. And when the bill comes in, I pay it off. At the end of the month, like clockwork, religiously, I pay it off. In fact, I have one credit card that I have on auto pay because the only thing that's on that credit card are my transportation. So like Metro card, my train, and my gas. I know I have the cash for that. So boom, it's on auto pay, is taken care of. If you only pay the minimum that your credit card company requires you to pay, it is going to trap you in a vicious cycle. If you pay above the minimum, and if you pay more frequently than they require, you can literally take years off of your debt repayment. Here's an example. It may not apply to you, but just to drive the point home. On a 30-year mortgage for a house, instead of paying your bill once a month, if you just pay it once every 2 weeks, it will take off 12 years. 12 years. It'll turn a 30-year mortgage into an 18-year mortgage. That's how much power you have by repaying your debts, not only on time, but perhaps more frequently. That's huge. I just can't stress enough how important it is to do above the bare minimum. Either pay more frequently or pay more than you owe. Best case scenario, pay it off as soon as you accrue it. The most value you'll get out of staying debt-free is the ability to fail. As freelancers, entrepreneurs, artists, we need to have the ability to fail. We need to be able to take risks and have it not work out and be able to just go, that didn't work. Let me try again. If you have debt, you can never start from square zero. You will always be starting from square negative or whatever. You get it. It's negative worth. You can't start from zero if you have debt. You will always be in the negatives. So avoid debt like the plague so that you can have the capacity and the freedom to take risks, and most importantly, to weather that storm and stick around long enough to make it to your big break. If this was valuable information for you, then you should check out this recent video I did on 5 ways I saved money in 2024. Folks, before you go, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. This is our only way to receive feedback and to know what is resonating with you. So please subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. All right, that's it for now. Till next time, y'all. Peace.